Hey, coming back at you from Johannesburg, South Africa. I needed to talk about this particular topic because a lot of people have been kind of hitting me up through the DM as well as on the feed and asking my thoughts on this whole deal about do I believe that African Americans are actually African. There's this movement of people who are saying, and they'll even chime in the comments, you're not from Africa, you're not from Africa. And I've heard this quite a bit. And it sounds crazy, but what I decided to do, instead of dismissing it as being crazy, I said, well, let me at least hear what's being said. And the reason why I say that is because these history books that we've had, these teachers that we've had, just this whole system that we have is subject to questioning just because of the lies and the manipulations and all the other kind of stuff that come along with the territory. So it is entirely plausible that there's a whole lot of stuff in the punch bowl that could be twisted. So I said, let me investigate this a little bit. And so the first thing I did was I started the whole process of going through the genealogy, because you got to remember what these people are saying is that those who are African Americans are actually indigenous to America. And this, in the discussions that I've heard, this has not included the fact that there's a tremendous ethnic mix for those who are so-called African Americans. It's almost as if it's been dismissed, like the DNA tests are fraudulent, all this other kind of stuff. So I'll come to that in a second. So I said, let me do my genealogy. So I went and I traced both sides of my family line. I got back, right to the early 1800s, as far as that's how far I could go back. And actually went back further, because on the European side of that line, it went back into England and to the graves. I could see the graves and all of that. They did have the pictures of that based upon the information I had, the historical information, without the genetics, without the DNA test. So I put that down first. So I said, this is what I know that I've been told. Then what I did was I went and I did the DNA test. And I said, the way for me to figure out whether or not this DNA test is fraudulent is, let me just do the obvious. Let me test my mother, let me test my children and see if they show up. So I tested my mother. She came back to be my mother. This testing company had no idea who was sending in the sample, didn't know anything. So I'm now going, genealogy says my mother's my mother. The DNA test now says my mother is my mother. So we're having some confirmation here. It's not a YouTube video. It's not somebody with some books sitting there trying to tell me that my genetics is something different than what it is. I'm now looking at what I know and I'm confirming it with what the genetics say. Then I had my children do the DNA. And again, the company does not know who my children are. They don't know who's sending in the sample. And it comes back that these are my children. So now we have that part of it. So then my father's sister, she took the test. And it came back that she was my aunt. But interestingly enough, her granddaughter took the test, but didn't know anybody, didn't know she took the test, didn't know her granddaughter taking the test long before. But somehow that test linked right to her without her even knowing. I still haven't met my cousin. So now, all of these different things are happening. There were so many other aspects of it, cousins linking and all of that through the DNA test, that are now starting to debunk this whole thing that the DNA test is fraudulent. I heard this one, when the guy who's leading this movement, he would talk about, well, these DNA tests are for-profit companies, they're not for-profit companies. And I was like, wow, I said, he should know better. He should know that not for-profit companies are for-profit companies. Not for profit is just a classification, but in order for them to function and to continue to thrive, they have to make a profit. So I was kind of like, okay, maybe he didn't do his homework there. The other part of it is that clearly he's making a profit from what he's telling the people and what he's pushing, out here to the masses. So I said, okay, so this is what's going on here. And I'm looking at it. My next step then was to go to Africa. And when I went to Africa, I didn't need DNA. In particular, when I went to Nigeria, I didn't need DNA. I looked around, I said, wait a minute. And it was so intense that the people thought that I was from Nigeria. They said, what state are you from? They were talking about what state in Nigeria are you from? When I said, no, I was born in the U.S., they were like, what? No, you look like an Igbo man. You look like you have our features, you know. And this was not anything that I went and prompted them. This was just organic. So now I'm looking at all of these different things. I'm looking at what my genetics, the DNA test came back and said that I'm roughly 75%, somewhere about African throughout West Africa, some Kenya, down into South Africa. And then the rest of my DNA is coming from Europe and a small percentage coming from the Americas, indigenous America. So at this point, I'm like, well, I don't know, you know, somebody coming in my feed talking about you aren't this, you aren't that. And I'm saying they haven't done the homework, and they haven't known what they needed to do. So I just kind of looked and I said, all right, this is, you know, obviously, you know, this person isn't going to, I realize we live in a lazy culture, and a lazy culture, people will just do, you know, they'll do the bare minimum in order to, they'll watch a YouTube video, they might barely read a book. But they'll start quoting things as fact because they heard someone else say it without doing their own due diligence. I'm the type of person, I'm going to go do my own due diligence because I don't have time to be, you know, messing around with the latest theory, the latest thing going on that somebody's peddling. And especially when I see people going in droves, that's when another red flag goes up. When I see millions of people following something and they're gung-ho, yes, 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 yes. I go back and I say to myself, you know, they have psychological experiments and things that they do to kind of play on the minds of people to see exactly how easily manipulated they are. And I just, you know, being on this earth, as long as I've been on this earth, I just know how this game is played. So this is not looking good for the You're Not From Africa crowd, because everything that I have that's from what I know historically, from my genetics, and then from going to Africa, and the lazy crowd isn't going to go to Africa because that costs money, that costs time, that takes energy. I knew at that point, I said, well, I can't speak for everybody else, but I know for me, I definitely have serious genetics that come from the continent of Africa, and I'm proud about it. You know, so I'm not gonna, unless somebody can show me something different, unless somebody can come in with some credible stuff, then I'm not gonna get caught up into the speculation after I've done the due diligence, after I've done what they told me to do, even in their little program, and it comes back with this. But then there were other things that just had holes in the whole discussion. People were asking like, well, you know, where are the slave ships? Where are the slave ships? There are no slave ships. And I was like, well, where are the ships that brought all of the Europeans over? Where are those ships? You know, these are wooden ships. You know, where are the ships that the Egyptians, the ancient Egyptians had, that they were out fishing and doing all of that? And where are all the other ancient ships? And so where are they? Now, of course, there's shipwrecks and everything that are in the sea. But when they have that argument, it doesn't really carry a whole lot of weight when you start to think about it. Where are the slave ships? And I'm saying, well, there are 200 and some odd million Europeans. Where are all the ships that brought them over? Now they have this thing saying that the slave trade didn't happen, that it didn't exist. Again, you go to Africa, the west coast of Africa, the east coast of Africa, and you go see the different dungeons. It's very evident. The evidence is there. It's very clear. It's concrete. It's not speculative. It's there. There's a pattern. You see how the colonization pattern worked. You see even what they were doing with each other in their own different slave trades in Europe, and how the whole mindset worked. Even when I hear the argument, you don't even hear South America coming to the conversation, in Brazil and Colombia and Venezuela and Cuba. And you don't hear that in the conversation. It always focuses right back on America, the African American, as if somehow the African American is somehow superior in this whole conversation, or somehow, you know. So I always challenge people. I said, well, you go on the reservation and see how you vibe with everybody. Get on the reservation, see how that works, and then go to Nigeria and see where you click. Now, the other part of it is that many of us have ethnic mix. So some of us are indigenous or have more indigenous DNA than others. See, the reason why I believe they don't want you to go chime into the DNA aspect is because it can start to disprove a lot of this stuff. So they have to discredit it. This is an old tactic And I wonder where the funding is coming from this particular theory that's getting out there. But you discredit it, and people just say, I don't believe in that stuff, I don't believe in that stuff. But there are people sitting in jail right now because of that stuff. There are people paying child support right now because of that stuff. Like I said, I went and I saw it, and it confirmed everything I knew about the immediate family, so there's no reason for me to feel that as though it's not credible in that sense. I know some people say, well, you know, when I did it the first time, it changed, the DNA changed, and the results changed. And, you know, one of the things that they explained is that their sample size changed. So when the sample size changed, now they had more to pull from, and that's one of the reasons why there was the update. Again, I'm not here to defend those particular companies. All I know is the results that I got lined up with what I just did in my own research. And hey, I'm very, very comfortable with it. And let's see, the other thing is, when they talk, they'll even tell people that, you know, that the Africans were taking back over. There were trade routes, of course. You're trading cargo, and I'm speaking as though the people were cargo. When you're trading cargo, yeah, you're going to have people coming back and forth, going back and forth. There's no doubt. When you have a trade route, you're going to have some of that happening. But the thing that you have to keep in mind is that America, although it has resources, it does not have all of the resources that Africa has. It didn't have the labor force that Africa had. Now, were there people who were already here? I believe there were people who were here. I'm in South Africa now. Already in America from Africa. Certainly I believe that they were already there, because I believe that you had people that were exploring who were African, who were going across the world prior to the Europeans and all of that. I don't give the Europeans credit for being the first to doing all of these different things. But to say that the people who clearly have African features, DNA, and all of the above, and telling them they don't come from Africa, just lends more to the confusion, lends more to the identity challenges that people are going through. And it really is just another example of the power of white supremacy and the people in the minds of many of those people who just want to believe that they're anything but African. But if you step foot in Africa and see the truth for yourself and go to the right places and connect with the right people, you will be very proud of your African heritage. I just challenge people to do the DNA test. If you think it's bogus, do it and see, and then go travel and see. To let your family do it. I'm not doing it because the government gonna get my stuff. When you were born, if the government wanted your stuff, they got it from your umbilical cord. When you go pee, when you go to the doctor, when you give blood, when you go to the doctor, if they want your DNA, they got your DNA. So all of that is whatever, you know. So, but I'm just spelling it out, so that people can have the ability to process this thing just with a little bit more thought. So anyway. I don't even know if I want to ask for any comments. But hey, feel free. I mean, I know some people, there's a thing called cognitive dissonance. Even when the stuff is in your face, people still will deny it. I'm the type of person, I like the truth no matter what it is. So if somebody can disprove what my DNA is, and that my children are my children, and what I saw in Nigeria, what I wasn't saw in all different parts of Africa I've been to, and the dungeons aren't the dungeons, and all of that, hey, I'm all for it. I just want the truth. I don't want to be bamboozled. I don't want to be led astray and run amok. But for those who are just holding on to something, when somebody is telling you, look, here's some credible evidence to show you otherwise, all I gotta say is go on the reservation and see how well you're received. Go to Nigeria, see how well you're received. Those people, the majority of them, don't even know what happened, and they can look at you and tell it's your family. And for some people, that still won't be enough. Anything but African is where so many people are with it. But you're missing out, though. That's what I got to say. You're missing out on a continent that has so many different resources. I tell people, I said, once you start tasting the food and once you start seeing the rhythms and you see how people move and how they flow, you go down to South Africa and see how people are built. Nigeria, see how people are built. And you compare that to how, like I say, you just go to the reservation and look at how people are built there versus how people, some of this stuff, I'm telling you, you can be completely illiterate. You don't have to be able to speak the language. You don't need a DNA test. You don't need anything, and it will smack you in the face. But again, I couldn't be one who was a part of the lazy culture. I got on the plane, I spent my money, I did what I had to do, and I continue to do it because I just want the truth. And so what I hope people will do is go on the search for the truth and not just go with the latest theory that's out there. That's my hope. And again, I don't doubt for one second that there were Africans already in the Americas, what we know as North America and South America. I don't doubt that there were people who were indigenous to those lands that had melanin in their skin. I don't doubt it at all. I saw it when I was in South America, so I don't doubt that. But this whole thing that African Americans exclusively are not from Africa, and with the ethnic mix and everything that's gone on, is the most primitive argument that I've heard to date. And now they're telling people in Africa they're not from Africa and telling them they're coming from America. We have got to get out of these primitive discussions and really begin to analyze things. But it's good, because for those who analyze it, they go and analyze it. It's just like the dude, he's out there telling people he's growing, he calls it an eggplant. And he puts the egg on a tree, glues it, and tells the people, look, this plant, this is an eggplant. And there are people out there who believe it. And unfortunately, that's where just a lot of people are. But again, I know I went and did my own due diligence for myself, and I'm very comfortable with it. So somebody can tell me I'm not who I am. I'd be a fool to allow them to gaslight me and tell me that I'm not who I am. And I've done more work on myself than as far as research on myself, than any one of them would spend a penny on me. And the interesting thing, I have yet to find anybody who spent any extensive time in West Africa who was a part of this mindset. Now, maybe they're out there. I'm sure there are. There's things out there for everything. But I have yet to find a person who was a part of, who's been there, eating the food, been among the people, seen, just been in that culture. I've yet to find that person who comes back and say, yeah, you know what? African Americans don't come from there. Oh man. Now, again, there were ethnic mixes, indigenous people with African people. I don't doubt that. So there are a lot of people who have a considerable amount of indigenous DNA. But don't dismiss your African DNA. The culture, the 50 plus countries, the thousands of ethnic groups, is something to be proud of. It's something to be proud of. And don't let that imperialization and colonization once again allow someone who looks like us to fool us. And that's how this whole game has been played. Confuse us, trick us, fool us, have us thinking all kinds of things, hating ourselves, but not really believing that we hate ourselves, dismissing our culture, demonizing our culture, demonizing our features, demonizing our skin complexion, demonizing our hair. All of these things are a play right out of that book that started over 500 years ago with the inception of America and that whole imperial time. So what we have to do, dig deeper. I'm not saying that there's some credible conversation to have, but this whole notion that the slave trade didn't exist and that African Americans are not African at all, that's the way it comes across, or it's only a small percentage. Just do your homework. And that's what they say do. So I'm telling you, take it up a notch. Go get on that plane and go see. Go hang out with the folks. Go to the dungeons. Just be among the people. You're not going to find, you're going to see cultural differences, but you're going to see a whole lot of similarities, especially if you go to Nigeria and Cameroon and Ghana and Togo and Benin and Cote d'Ivoire, Sierra Leone, and all through that whole west coast, Liberia and all of that, Guinea up in the Senegal. You start spending time there, there's no doubt that there's some sort of connection, and it's beyond what they're saying. So anyway, make sure that you like, subscribe, share, and please feel free to drop comments below and share this, share this with your folks. Share this with your folks that's out there now running around saying, y'all know we not from America, now we, like, and it's like, all right, I'm gonna leave it at this. It's like, how can somebody look, it's like they can look and tell who's African American, but the people in Nigeria, they can't tell who's like, their relatives come from them. It's like, I can tell you African American, so you not from here, we not from here, we not from here. All I'm telling you, put your money where your mouth is. Get on the plane and go see. Get on the plane and go see. Spend some time among them folks. Well, I know some Nigerians in America. I didn't say do that in America. I said get on a plane, go spend your money, and go hang out in the indigenous native land of Africa and see how that flows. It just might rub off on you. I'm proudly African, and anything else that's within my cultural DNA, and I'm proud of my culture in America, and if you want to call it African American or whatever, black, I don't know. is that that's a whole different kind of conversation. But I'm proud of all of that, and I got the proof to back it up. So I got some DNA, some genealogy, and boots on the ground. So that's what I encourage you to do. Do your own due diligence. Until next time, be sure to click that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and share Maximum Impact with Jay Cameron. And be sure to join us on one of our trips to Africa. I'll take you over there and show you myself.
Open up your eyes and see all the fun and mystery. Take an African adventure with Darren and Destiny. From the mountains to the shore, so many things to explore. Take an African adventure with Darren and Destiny.
The Adventures of Darren and Destiny. And Darren and Destiny are twin brother and sister, and you go on their adventures throughout the African diaspora, meaning so African diaspora destinations, primarily focused in Africa, but we go to South America, we're going to go to the Caribbean. Their first book is going to take you to Ghana, and then we're going to go on a safari, and from there we're going to go to Ethiopia, and then we go to Salvador, Brazil. And what the goal is to be able to inspire curiosity in the continent of Africa, in our children from a very young age, and to really tell a more accurate story. Most of our children are exposed to negative images, late night infomercials about how bad things are, everybody's sick, everybody's poor, everyone's uneducated, but that's simply not true. So what Darren and Destiny and their family do is they go to different African destinations. They are learning about these different places. You're beginning to see positive images, but still telling the truth. I mean, that's the important thing, to tell the truth about some of the things that have occurred. But it's all done on our children's level so they begin to understand it. And it begins to pique their curiosity. They begin to learn more. And hopefully one day they will want to explore and visit the continent of Africa and its many countries. There's just so much that Darren and Destiny are able to do, and as they're doing it, it's like they begin to open the minds of a new generation, and they don't get bombarded and indoctrinated with negativity. They're actually able to see positivity and inspiring images and messages about the African diaspora, as well as those who are still indigenous to the continent of Africa, and they begin to learn more and just see things differently. So I'm excited about introducing the Adventures of Darren and Destiny.